All right. Hello, everyone. So this is a video that I wanted to share with you guys because it has to do with the moral education here in Kyoto. Now, my one partner teacher teaches her homeroom class, this moral education class, and I was super interested in it, and I think you guys were too. So I wanted to share information about it, like more information. Now, this stuff that I have with me right now, this is from a lesson that I was able to observe just the other day. And this lesson in particular was actually about foreigner well-being in Japan, discrimination, um, mostly about foreigners and the well-being of foreigners here in Japan. So the teacher had a whole bunch of slides on the TV that was basically like information, questions. We did quiz style things, kind of thing. So I'm just looking at these are the notes that I wrote down here. So the first thing she did was she asked the students, can you guess the kinds of discrimination that people in Japan have or experienced, or what you've seen, kind of thing. So she wrote down those on the board. And then so she gave some examples of people throwing eggs onto buses or at people. And that one I wrote down because I was like, man, that would suck if you're just walking and then all of a sudden someone throws an egg at you. Okay, so she said, she asked the kids then, how many foreigners live in Japan? So what's really interesting about this is she had a lot of like charts and data and graphs and like actual physical measurements of everything that she was talking about. So this one is like how many foreigners live in Japan. She had a pie chart that showed the divisions of how many, the top 6, I think, foreigners that live in Japan. And she asked the students to guess what was the first, second, third, and so on. And they revealed it one by one. So the first most foreign people here is China. The second is Korea. The third is Philippines. The fourth is Brazil. The fifth is Vietnam. Sixth, I believe, is America, and then Taiwan and India were in there somewhere as well. I was really practicing my listening skills for Japanese, but these are the ones that I was able to pick up. And so after they figured that out, she started talking about the foreign residence card. So the fact that foreigners here have to carry their residence card on them at all times. And she asked if I had mine, and I did, so I brought it and I showed it to the kids, and they thought it was interesting. And then she immediately talked about the conditions, the living conditions for foreigners. So talking about, you know, refusal of apartments. So maybe if you're a foreigner looking for a place here in Japan, you might be refused at public baths, at apartments, at the hairdresser. There's occasions where they were refused service. Booking hotels, they're refused service, like the do not enter signs or Japanese only signs kind of thing. And so then she's talking about hate speech. So what is it? And she gave some examples from the news, from the internet, Twitter, that kind of thing. And what's this? Okay, so apparently they did a study, and 34.6% of Japanese people don't know about the problems of human rights in Japan. And I thought that was really, really interesting. So that's what these classes are for, is they're trying to get kids to really understand what's happening in the nation, especially with physical data that they can show them, like an actual percentage of anything, because Japan likes to record everything, so it makes it a lot easier to teach it. Okay, so what else did I write down? Okay, so they talked about hate speech, and then all of a sudden she really focused on Korea, because I think that made it a little bit easier for the students to understand. Plus the history between Japan and Korea is a little bit shaky. So the first thing she did was she asked the kids what they knew about Korea. So she made this quiz style PowerPoint, true or false, about the fashion, the eating utensils, what's taboo in Korea. Like apparently it's taboo to leave food. You're supposed to leave food on, or sorry, to, okay, basically don't finish your meal. Because apparently if you finish your meal in Korea, it means that the server didn't give enough food or something, or the host didn't give enough food. So that's what she told me. So, and then, okay, so then I thought they were talking about religions around the world, but I guess they were just talking about like the religions that were brought over from other foreign cultures and what have you. Because I heard Cristo, which is like Christian, I believe. Okay, so then she started talking about the geography of Japan, China, Russia versus Korea, and then that's when she went into the history. So apparently in 1910, Japan took or had control over Korea. So they took their food, culture, fashion. They also took their people to work in Japan. And she wanted the kids to understand what it meant to be taken by another country, and by telling them, okay, so from this day forward, you can only speak English, and you can't speak Japanese, and you have to know how to write. You gotta put yourself in the foreigner's shoes, basically. So she really made them, you know, feel what it's like to be outed and completely taken over and force changed, basically. And she also said that they would have to change their names. So I'm guessing, like, it was complete control, basically. And actually, just a side note, what's really interesting, the area that we live in here in Kyoto, it has a lot of Koreans living here. And I found out it's because, like, during the war, they brought a whole bunch of them over to work in the factories here. Because there's a lot of, like, rundown factories that I don't think they're in use anymore. And the Koreans like had no money to be able to go back, so they ended up staying here, and then they've established themselves in this area. So I thought that was a really interesting thing to know. Okay, so anyways, we keep going, and then we have telling people where they can and cannot go. So basically, you cannot go to this area. There's a curfew. So really telling the kids or the students how controlled these people were, where they couldn't even go, say, to the grocery store during certain hours or something. And then keeping rice, money, job opportunities aren't equal. There's difficulties and challenges. Going to the hospital and getting medical care, that was challenging. Sports and sports events, those were super challenging for foreigners. Television shows, marriage, so just a lot of the things, typical things that would be challenging for foreigners in a country, especially if there's like a bias. Because of the history between Japan and Korea, a lot of Koreans get discriminated by Japanese people. Apparently, this is what this lesson was. I'm no expert at all in any of this, but it's interesting enough that I wanted to share it with you guys, and so you can see what goes on in these moral education classes. So, okay, show famous foreigners in Japan. So basically, she had a PowerPoint. She had pictures of foreigners in Japan who were actresses, actors, sports athletes, major people, I guess like just famous people. And so, okay, what they really were acknowledging was that Japan did some really awful things to other countries and other people. So that's what I believe is written down here. It's all in Japanese, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. So the students had to fill in blanks here. And, okay, what was really interesting about this, at the very end, this was the last thing that she did. So this is an essay. She read it from beginning to end. It was written by a junior high student a few years ago. And this student is Korean. And because of the history between Japan and Korea, he got discriminated and bullied and pushed around a lot. So the other students were ridiculing him during a soccer game, and he got so emotional about this, or like he felt so strongly about this that he wrote this essay. in response to what he had experienced. And now this essay is being shown to kids across Japan. So it's bringing light to the situation, and hopefully things will be getting better. But anyways, yeah, so that's the moral education class that I saw. It was really interesting, and if I see more, I'll let you know. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye!